Okay, that's better.
And I got another one.
No, that's good. Uh, so,
My name is Anne Elizabeth Spencer Harrison. This is June the 24th, 1917.
uh, so, Doug just had his first child.
Kevin.
No, Doug. Doug just had his first child. This is a question for the future.
Oh,
Doug just had his first child. What would you like to tell him?
treasure each day with him. I know you're going to be a good father and spend time with him and help feed him and take care of him. I am sure of all of that. Tell him stories about me. I've already told you I thought he would be a boy. But it doesn't matter. You will love a boy or a girl the same. Never take life for granted. Take time out of your life to do special things with him, so he will have special memories and pictures of you doing things with him. I know Chrissy will be a wonderful mother. You see your life very happy for the rest of your life. Always make sure your children know how much I love them and how much I wanted to be there with them.
Okay. Can you tell me how Grandma, your mother, got chickens ready, got chicken to cook?
Well, we had chickens on the farm and a chicken house. My job was to gather the eggs, which I really hated to do. I didn't want to reach. Ooh, I didn't want to reach my hand under the chicken. So I only took a stick and poked it, got the eggs out. And when Mom wanted the chicken for supper, she would go out in the morning and catch the chicken. And then she would, that was hard to do. You had to do it in the chicken house. And you wanted to get one that wasn't a heavy layer as far as hens go. And sometimes it'd be a rooster because they were getting old and mean. They were even harder to catch. Then she would go outside and take the chicken, hold it around its neck, and swing the chicken in the air like this until the body flew off, and then it would fly, hit the ground, and jump around for a long time with blood spurting out. And it was a long process of getting a chicken ready to eat. You had to pick all the feathers, and then there would be little things left in the skin you had to take out. And then you had to take it into the kitchen and hold it over a flame of fire. She had gas burners, and that put off a terrible smell. And then you picked all that stuff out. You had to cut it open and take the gizzard out. Inside the gizzard was rocks, just plain old little rocks. You should clean it all and cut it up and fry it in grease. A fried chicken made gravy with the grease.
So, why was it important? Why was it important to pick the right bags for the right flour bags when you're getting flour or feed?
Well, the flour bags was fabric, like flowers or polka dots or checks or paisley prints or something. And when Mom needed flour, she knew how many flour sacks, the sacks were 10 pounds. She knew how many flour sacks it took to make me a blouse. And I would have to go look at the flour sacks in the store to flour sacks in the store to pick out my next clothes I was going to wear. And some of it was just really ugly. So I'd go back to the store owner, Harold. In the back, he was a butcher and had a fresh meat market there. And he would let me go in the back room and look at all of the flour sacks and see if I could find two that I liked well enough to wear clothes, or three, how many ever it was. And then he'd come help me take them down. And Mom would have flour for a long time because you had to buy it all at the same time. You'd never get the fabric to match. In the hardware store, they had 50-pound bags of feed, and the wives came in with the husbands and picked their clothes for their next dress, because she just wore a blouse, a skirt. They just didn't ever have very much fabric at all in the stores. And this way you're getting two products at once, fabric and clothes and food for the animals, or food for bread for the people.
Hey, well, today, Audrey's getting married. What would you like to tell her?
Well, the first I would like to say, when you got engaged to the man, I hope you didn't do it real fast, and you got to know him really, really well, so it'll be a successful marriage. It's important to be best friends before you're married, because if you can't be friends and want to tell that person everything, then I think the marriage will have a problem. No marriage is easy. You have to know that the man thinks opposite of what a female thinks. You have to compromise. If you can't compromise and give a little, something simple like leaving the lid off of the toothpaste or the seat up on the toilet or shoes where you don't want them left, any tiny little thing like that can be a problem and snowball into a great big snowman problem. There will always be disagreements and arguing about money. Money seems to be the height of marriage problems. But that will all work out if you love each other and are friends and you compromise. If you want a family, have a family. There's nothing more rewarding than having children. But if you truly feel that it's not right for you to have children, then that's right for you. But you won't be a good parent if you didn't want to be a parent to start off with. I think another big thing is be in the position that if the marriage doesn't work out, you can support yourself with some kind of a career. Because there's a lot of marriages that don't work out, probably more that do, but that's what you be happy. Enjoy each day. Each day's a blessing.
So you grew up in Welda. Well, outside, technically, I guess outside Welda.
Well, Kansas, 5
yeah.
miles in the country.
So how big was Welda?
Well, when I was in elementary school, first of all, I went to grade school in the country. I walked to a one teacher, 8th grade school every day for 3 years and 6 weeks. And that was a whole different kind of schooling when the teacher was teaching 8 grades. Then we went to the big town of Welda. It was just a little hole in the wall. There was one school there. Had the elementary on one side, 8 grades, and 4 high school grades on the other side. With a gym in the middle and shop buildings outside for the boys to have shop. We had a football field outside of town a little ways, and playground with playground equipment and land that we could play baseball or play play games, run around play games. I don't think there was any baseball court or anything there, but there was land there for us to play games or something. We practiced track and running some there. And the town when I was in elementary, it had a rug shop that was done on a loom, like they would weave in and then push it forward to make it a pattern. And I think there was a drugstore, hardware store, post office, and the grocery store. Well, the drugstore didn't last long, and the drugstore last. I heard that at one time there was a blacksmith shop there, but I'm not sure if it was there when I was in elementary. So mostly what stayed in business there was just Harrison Hardware and Harold's Grocery Store and post office. They still have a post office there. Of course, the grocery store and the hardware store's been gone for 20, 30 years. But they still have people in Weldon. They still have a post office that's open a couple days a week or something like that.
And who started the Harrison Hardware?
J.W. Harrison, and his wife's name was Elizabeth. And they had maybe at least 6 kids, I think. I don't remember for sure. And then the second generation of Harrison that ran the hardware store was Dean Harrison, and his wife was Mary Margaret, and everybody called her Mamie. He ran it with his dad when he was old enough, and then he took over running it. When Bean's son Virgil was old enough to learn how to work there and learn how to do things, he did, probably as a teenager. And he was the plumber and the electrician. He could build furniture. He ran the hardware store and did all the mechanics and repairs and replacement of water heaters and replacing of pipes or whatever needed to be done in all of the farmers. And he was the third Harrison generation. It might have been in the 70s, but I'm not sure. But we have an article written up about it that was in the paper, how many years it had been open. I think it was opened around 1898 or something like that, and it was opened until 70 or 72 or something like that, maybe. They didn't close up the hardware store until Dean died. He went down to the store every day and enjoyed visiting with the friends and gave him something to do every day that he enjoyed, because he'd been doing that all of his life. They had a good hardware store. They carried a bunch of Rx dishes and stuff for kitchens, besides all of the hardware and lumber. They had a lumber yard in the back. I'm not sure. I think maybe Virgil and Dean started the lumber yard, but I'm not sure. I don't think J.W. had a lumber yard. And all three of those Harrison generations is buried at the Wells Cemetery.
Now, Virgil, how many houses did Virgil make? And do you remember when he made the houses?
Well, he made a little greenhouse across from where his main brick house was before he started the brick house. It was, my guess would have been, the brick house was done in the 50s, so it would have been around 50, something like that. It was a real nice 3-bedroom. Well, they used one bedroom as what they call the ham shack because he was a ham radio operator and was very active in that. Went to monthly meetings and everything. He then he built these brick houses, and it was still in good shape when we sold it after he died in 2002, probably. I think he died in 2001. I don't know if we got it sold until 2002, but the local family bought it and is living there. Then he built, I think, 2 houses in Garnett just to sell. And he built a house in Greeley, Kansas, where Zona Harrison, Virgil's wife's mother, Viola Brown, lived for a number of years. That's all the houses I can remember.
So he made all those houses when he was running Harrison Hardware then.
Right.
That was something that just occurred to me when you were talking to the hardware store.
Yeah, he was doing the hardware store.
So when you were a kid, Grandpa well, your father, uh, worked in the fields and ran the cat and that type of thing. When he,
Well, he had, first of all, he, he quit high school. He was given the choice of going on to high school. He went for 1 year, I think. And it was not common for people then to go to graduate from high school. It was more common for the men to quit and go to work. And his dad did caterpillar work and road grader work, building roads wherever he could find a job in different states. So Burl, Daddy's brother, and his brother Clinton and Daddy all went to work on that road gang. And they learned how to do the caterpillar road graders and scrapers and all of that kind of jobs. And then while he was doing that, as he got a little bit older, when he married in 1934, he married Mom, and he built a trailer house that they lived in. The outside dimensions of the trailer house was 8 feet by 10 feet. And before they were finished traveling in the trailer, that would have been 41 or 42, and they got married in 34, that they stopped traveling in the trailer. And they had 3 sons in the trailer. Clifford was a tiny baby and didn't live in the trailer for even a whole year, I don't think. And one thing very interesting about this is my mother was an avid quilter. She truly loves the process of quilting and piecing it and hand quilting it and everything. And her grandma and mother both did it. And she had 5 sisters, I think, and they all quilted. So it sort of ran in the family that she would be a quilter. Then, so the only way she was going to get quilts is take inside the trailer house a full-size quilt frame. And it was on a pulley system of some kind, or just hooks, I don't know. And it was kept on the ceiling of the trailer. And then when Mom could quilt, she would take it down and quilt inside the tiny trailer. They had one bed, some kind of a table and a sink and some kind of something to cook on. And I don't know if they had a bathroom or not. I don't remember finding that out. I would say probably not. 'Cause everybody would have had outhouses then. And she said they had to, the boys had to sleep on some kind of a sofa. Well, when they got older and couldn't all fit into one bed. My father also built his own tractor once. They called it the doodle bug. And we have pictures of that as metal wheels on the back. I think maybe on the front too. It was made down in Allen County. And
Allen County, Kansas.
Allen County, Kansas. And when that was 20-some miles from where the tractor was to where the daddy farmed. But somehow or other they got the tractor up there. I had an uncle and daddy's sister and her husband, Doris and Billy Rowe, that used it for farming for over a year. Uncle Billy told me just a year or so before he died. He said it was a good tractor. It never did fail. And he used it himself for over a year, farming everything he had to farm. They had moved up close to Grandma Spencer, Clinton Burl, Daddy, Ilvin Robert, Ivan, Carol, Doris, and Elton were their children. Elton died of diphtheria when he was 16 in 1932. And they had just been living up in 40 or 41, they moved up to Anderson County and was living up there. No, it had before that. No, it had been around 40 or 41. They moved up to Anderson County and lived there and was farming. Daddy found a place that was probably maybe 2 miles away that he was buying when he was living in the trailer. And he almost had it paid for and was getting ready to move up there when his dad died in 1942 of a wreck on it. He was driving a farm tractor and he drove too far close to the edge of the gravel road and fell, and the tractor was on top of him. He died that day. There was 2 people on with him Uncle Ivan and Uncle Billy, and they weren't hurt. Then the funny thing about all of this is, or weird, not funny, my grandma Spencer lived on the farm then, and her sons helped her do everything. And she died of cancer in 1952, so Elton died in 32, Clinton, or Grandpa died in 42, and Grandma died in 52. In 62, Clinton, her son, their son, Daddy's brother, had a massive heart attack and almost died. I remember when the call came in for Daddy, and him and Pearl was in the car. They lived 7 miles apart, but they was literally in the car driving to Arkansas in less than 30 minutes. Because they wanted to see Clinton before he died. It was 62. He lived another 6 or 7 years. 6 years, I think. Both of my sides of the family. Mom's name was Alma Elizabeth Jones. She had 8 siblings, and they were all close. And family was so important. They got together with family reunions and picnics in the summer. And it was just, if you had a rainy day and couldn't work, you went to visit family. You didn't stay at home and watch TV. You went and spent a day visiting 3 or 4 different families. And that's the way the Spencer family was. They got as many generations as they could together, and were very close, family oriented. You don't see that hardly as ever now anymore. People just don't do family as much as we did. A lot of it because of the distance they live away from each other. But because of all of that, you don't have close cousins that would just drop everything and do anything for you. That feels more like sisters than cousins. And I'm really sorry my boys don't have that. Now back to my father and what he did. And as he maintained his farm, and he was a great manager, he figured up his taxes for farm taxes and stuff 3 or 4 times a year. So he would know how much grain he could sell and not hurt him on income tax. So he was able to save money. And after he saved a lot of money, him and his brother Burl went together in Spencer Brothers Construction Company. And they started a truck and trailer to carry the caterpillar on. They increased to more than one caterpillar, and they got road raiders as when they needed it, and they had scrapers, and they would build ponds for the farmers, and they would build terraces so the crops would grow better and not just blow away for the farmers. They cleared the land from trees and rocks and stuff so they could farm more land. Some of this is done with a road grader and some done with a caterpillar. And then the scraper, you'd pull it behind the caterpillar and it would pick up a lot of dirt to move the dirt out for a pond. They built a pond big enough for them to go skiing in. It had a dock on it for sitting and fishing, and a ramp to put a boat in, and they could go water skiing, but it was just for family because it was so hard to go to a lake that you could ski and not get run over because of all the boats in Kansas. What else?
When your dad was done in the fields and came home, what was it like?
Well, he'd walk in the door. He always wore bib overalls, gray striped big overalls, and a chamois long sleeve shirt. And he always kept the button here open. It was never closed. He was black all over. His face and his arms and his skin and fingers. He was just really, really dirty. And had his little white eyes sticking out, And he would walk straight into the kitchen, because it'd be after dark before he got home. And it would be just turning daylight when he left for work every single day. I think he'd stayed home most Sundays. But another thing that was amazing, well, anyway, I'll finish that. He would walk into the kitchen and start eating. And he'd eat quite a bit of food. And then he would go take a bath and clean up and go get more food and eat more food. That was his routine at night. He slept as long as he could sleep, and if he got up at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, he could never go back to sleep. So he would get up and make a pot of coffee. I don't know how much coffee he drank in the morning, but he took a thermos of coffee and he drank a pot of coffee, I think, or whatever. Anyway, he took coffee with him at his lunch. I think he always made his lunch. Don't know what he took. And he read every magazine and paper cover to cover. He took a lot of magazines and stuff. He took Life and Look and Time magazine, I think, and he liked to read Sherlock Holmes stories. He loved Will Rogers. We went to his museum in Cherokee or something like that, Oklahoma, multiple times. He loved cameras. He had every movie camera that came out for a long time. That was like a home movie camera. He'd go around to families. He always took his camera when he went around to the families to go around to the families and took pictures of them as their life was then. And then he gave it to them so they would have a record, a movie record, to show their family what their life was then. When he gave his word, nobody had to have a handshake or a written document or anything. If my father told him, I'll be there as soon as I can, and it might be a week or whatever, they knew he'd be there. And he would do exactly the best job ever for whatever job the farmer was having him do. And then one thing I found out that he did, if somebody came and he was working and they found him in the field, he would stop working and get off the cat and talk to them. But he looked at his clock, his watch, to see what time it was when they came. And then when they left, he did that again. And he did that at lunch. He never charged them for the 10 minutes he ate lunch or for the 10 minutes or whatever that the farmer talked. He never charged them. Farmers probably didn't even know that.
So, Olive is about to graduate high school, and she's looking at colleges, trying to decide, what she wants to major in and everything. What do you want to tell her?
Audrey?
Olive.
always.
But I mean, this actually is something that, for
Well, I would
that
say
you could use
olive
for all
or
of them, actually.
olive uh, and Audrey both. I feel it's very monumentally important that you go to college and have some kind of a career so you can support yourself if that time ever comes. Be careful in the career you choose, and if you chose the wrong career, just change it, do another career. Many, many, many people do that, thousands and billions. Just because that's what you think you like, it's not necessarily going to be what you like. The biggest mistake I made in my life was to not have a career that I could support my family on. It made for many, 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 many very hard years for me. I always worked. I started off by a waitress in O'Neill was still in college. And then I was I cleaned houses, babysat kids. I worked in a photography studio. I did lots of different jobs. I worked in a church nursery on Sundays and 2 jobs during the week, so Neil was out of work during that time, and I was working 3 jobs a week. And Neil's answer to the question to it was, yell at the kids, it's the kids' fault. Your mom is working 3 jobs and you can't even take the dishes off the table. I mean, he would just be so awful to you boys. But be happy in your job. Because if you like what you do, you are never at work. Be happy at home. Don't put up with anything that you can't be happy with. Try your best to get really good grades. And I know you both are going to be so smart to be able to do that. If you always get good grades in high school, then you can get scholarships for college, and you won't have such a student debt. Student debt takes you 30 years or whatever to get pay off. So getting good grades will help prevent that. study hard. We enjoy school. And you are a blessing to everyone on both sides of your family. And I love you very much. I wish I could be there with you.
Okay.
What we can do. A lot up there like that.
Okay.
Is that better or worse?
No, we're recording.
Oh.
So tell me about when you were changing my diaper.
Well, when Brian was little, I don't know how to remember what age, but tiny. We used cloth diapers, of course. They didn't have disposable diapers. And I pinned the diaper into the diaper, into Brian, out of Brian, through the diaper, and snapped it shut. He just kept a-crying. And I was so mortified when I stuck my hand in there and it was attached to the skin. Oh, it was just awful. So I took it off and put some alcohol or something on it to help keep it from getting infected, and never did that again. It took me 20 years to be able to tell anybody how awful I was as a mother, treating him as doing something awful like that.
What'd you do to keep it from happening again?
I stuck my finger in instead of your body. Just put your fingers in there. When Jeff came over to the hospital, he was 1 year old. 1 week old. And that night, Brian was so excited to have his brother home that he stood up by Jeff's head and Jeff squirted him in the mouth when I lifted his legs up to change his diaper. Brian never stood there again. He always wanted to see everything going on in his precious brother's life. I said, watch from the other end.
Um, tell me about your dad and getting his overalls caught in an auger.
Well, he had a jacket on and long sleeve chamois shirt, overalls. Of course, he had these farm boots and they were out putting grain into the bin or someplace. Farm grain, they had combine. And he never buttoned his jacket sleeve or his shirt sleeve. That he got it too close to the auger and it grabbed a hold of it. It spun him around, threw him up in the air, ripped off all of his clothes. He came in the house wearing his underwear. And my mother had no idea what happened, what was going on. He might have had bits and pieces of a shirt or something else on, but he basically had his clothes ripped off of it. I think it even took his shoes off. And he was able to pull himself out of an auger.
Now, for Audrey and like Olive, what's an auger? Because they won't know. They've probably never seen
Well,
one.
it's a round thing, so big around. And it's probably 20 feet long. Maybe not that long, but it's long. And they have things that go around and around and around and around. And you keep the grain going out of the truck into the auger. And it transfers through these spinning things that's all the way up inside the auger into a big grain bin.
Right. So it's used to you dump grain and corn or whatever you're putting in at the bottom of the auger. It corkscrews it up through a pipe to the
Right.
top of a grain bin.
Yeah.
So he got his clothes caught in the spinning.
And it just threw him up in the air. Had people there and watched it. Said they'd never seen anything like it before. They were so surprised when he was alive. He didn't have a lot of cuts on him. He was bruised and scratched up. Bad. And he when Mom saw him coming into the house in these underwear and just little pieces of the shirt or whatever, she says, well, Curly, it's too cold to be outside without a coat and clothes on.
I can just hear her saying that too. That is so true to what she would. That is just what she would say.
Real. It was just real honest and no feeling in it at all, because she didn't know what happened. We have some pictures of that somewhere.
What of what he looked like? Really?
With his clothes on when he came in the house.
So tell me. Well, at one point, Jeff was riding a scooter to school. Tell me about when him and Rob went to school on the scooter when it was raining.
Well, we told him that if he wanted a scooter, he had to ride it to school, rain, snow, hail, or sleet. That we wasn't going to take him because it was a little rainy out. Rob was always taller, and weighed more than Jeff. So they had to Rob had to drive, and Jeff had to ride. And when it was raining, they would put on big 55-gallon trash bags. They'd fix them on their legs, one bag, and then they'd fix the other bag on the top. And put their helmets on and go to high school.
Now, I'm trying to remember. Can't remember whether it was Doug or Kevin. From when it happened, I'm thinking it was Doug. That you were trying to get him to. You were pregnant with him. And then you went out and you were doing everything you could to try and have him be born.
Oh, it's Kevin. Kevin's pregnancy was very unusual. I started off with, I was having very regular periods. So I had 3 or 4 months that I didn't have a period. And then I would have more than one period at a time. And so from the time the doctor thought I got pregnant until I got pregnant was a whole calendar month.
Calendar year.
Calendar year. And I had to end up going to bed because of bad varicose veins up high on my leg. And so I was in bed for 3 or 4 months before he was born. And in my mind, I'd been pregnant for a year, because that's what I truly believed. And every time I went to the doctor, he would move it back another month. From the time I thought I got pregnant till Kevin was born was not a year, but it was in my mind. So I got out of bed, went outside in Topeka, and rode a go-kart as fast and as hard as I could, get that baby to start going to labor. Then I went inside and took a whole bottle of castor oil. It's awful tasting stuff. And went back to bed and didn't help any. It was 2 weeks more before they finally decided to induce me.
And then after he was born,
No, Kevin went into labor. Jeff and Doug had to be induced, I think.
now after he was born, how long after he was born did we move? And then tell me about that first summer when we moved. After we moved.
That the number or the movers came at 3 weeks to move us. Neil had to go on a leave of absence while I was in bed because he was supposed to be at a new job in Texas. And so he left as soon as Kevin was born, and somebody else took me home from the hospital, a friend. Then 3 weeks later, the movers came and moved us, packed everything. They literally packed everything. They packed a bag of trash. They literally packed a bag of trash. And then when we got to Texas, it was down Grapevine, and it was over 100 every day for 60 or 70 days, something like that. I think it's still a record. So the boys never went outside. It was just a hard time. Neil was out of town for 5 weeks. When we first got in town, no weekends home or anything. And that was real hard too. With the baby. I had so much to get done, and I had fed Kevin so many times. I took care of him so much that time. I wouldn't have made it without him.
Now, when we first moved to Topeka, I want to remember that we had an incident with Jeff when we first moved to Topeka.
You had the what with Jeff?
An incident
Oh,
with the
the
grass.
grass was so tall, it was taller than Jeff. All over the yard. And it was a large yard. I would say at least a half the acre. I don't know how long it was.
I want to remember it's bigger than that because,
I don't know how long.
well, what made it big was in the backyard, it went into an open lot.
I know, but our lot itself was half or 3/4 of an acre.
Well, I was a lot smaller, so it seemed like a massive yard to me.
Yeah, it was. But we had a garage downstairs in the back with a big deck on the back. And it was an old swing set there. And it had swarms of either wasps or bees in it. And Jeff had evidently seen it from the deck. He would have been
Well, Topeka, I went in at Topeka. What, second grade? I think it was second grade.
okay.
For me. We were there from
So
second
Jeff
to
was
sixth,
still at home.
second to fifth grade.
Jeff hadn't gone to school yet. I didn't think he had. He was very active and mobile and but he got lost in the grass because we couldn't see him. He was tall, the grass was taller than him. And so he didn't know which way to go to get to the house or which way to go to get to the swing set, and he would have just got stung 50 times if he'd gone over there and disturbed that swing set. So.
But I don't think we knew at the time that the swing set had wasp or anything in it at the time, did we?
Well, you could, as Jeff got closer to the swing set, you could see it swarming.
Oh, okay. I don't even remember that part of it.
So we had to have couple people stand up on the deck to direct another person to him. Because he was determined to get on the swing set.
Now, tell me about the time we went. I think this is when we went on vacation to Colorado. Is what I want to remember. But when we went camping, we're at a campground, and Jeff wanted to go catch what I think he said it was a raccoon.
No, we was in Arkansas or Missouri at Jellystone Park. And we had the bus with a little car in the back. We took the little car out and blew up mattresses in the back to sleep on. One night when we got back from doing something, he he saw an animal and he said, "I'm gonna go catch that squirrel." And it was a skunk. So we just yelled at him a couple of times, "No, stop." And he did, I think.
Now, what was the one thing, one of the first things you taught us as a child?
When I say stop, you stop what you're doing right then. Don't move. The word stop means stop in your tracks, don't move a muscle.
And I remember when that time with the skunk, he stopped. You told him stop and he did.
Yeah.
Now, when we lived at Kansas City, what happened with, I was down with Dad, helping Dad with the race car. What happened with my teeth?
I don't remember that.
When I chipped my tooth?
You what?
When I chipped my tooth.
Oh, chipped your tooth. I thought you said feet.
Oh no.
Well, you was in your father's empty midget or Formula 4, not Formula.
I want to remember it. I want to remember it. It was the midget. I want to remember as the F production is what I want to
F
remember.
production.
I think it was the F. I don't think it was the G production. I think this is after the G.
And I don't know exactly why you hit your head, your tooth on the roll bar, but you did, and it was chipped for many years until the dentist cleaned it off.
You okay? Okay. So, through the years, Grandpa had a lot of various jobs. Tell me about some of the jobs that Grandpa had.
Spencer?
Yes, Spencer.
Well, he was a farmer. So when he was a teenager, his dad gave him a choice of dropping out of school and working on roads, building roads. And he saved his money, got married, and then traveled around working on road jobs until he had enough money to buy a farm. Bought a farm in Anderson County, Kansas, and was a farmer for a lot of years. During the Depression, he did lots of different kinds of jobs. He went out of state wherever there was a job. And he hand-picked corn, and he dug ditches for something.
How much was he paid for shucking the corn?
I don't remember, but it was like, you know, all day long it was a couple of dollars. I don't know, it wasn't very much money. But I remember for sure. When he dug ditches, it was a 6 foot deep, 6 foot long I think it was 6 by 6 by 6 with a shovel, and he could dig that in an hour and a half, which was very fast. The more ditches you dug for this, whatever they were digging it for, well, he got paid more money the more ditches he dug. He built his own business after he got his farm going good and saved money. And he had a Spencer Brother construction company with his brother Burl Spencer. They lived about 7 miles apart in the country in Anderson County. They bought Caterpillars, a truck and trailers to carry it with. They had road graders, scrapers. They did ponds for farmers, terraces for farmers. They cleared land for farmers, like trees and stuff. And he also did his farm work still. He could do a lot of stuff like weld, and if something broke, he would just build it out of some metal with welding and stuff to save money wherever he could.
Didn't he work in Texas?
Well, they went down to the oil boom he was a child then. He was 4 or 5 or 6 or something like that. Burnett, Texas, where they had that oil boom. His dad, Benjamin Floyd Spencer, and his uncle, Art Spencer, went down there together and had an oil rig and was digging for oil in Burnett, Texas. They Uncle Art dropped all of his tools in the well. They lost everything. Daddy had all of his family there. I don't think Uncle Art had his family there. And Clinton, the oldest son, found $10 on the street, and they used that to get back to Kansas. He worked all around a lot of states. I'm not sure if he worked in Texas or not. When they were married, they traveled around with his trailer he made and the car, and they traveled around and did road jobs and whatever kind of job he could find. Whatever job he could find, and they went for around a lot in Oklahoma. I think they were in Colorado some. I'm not sure if they were. Let's see. They might have been in Texas some, but I'm not sure.
So tell me about when you went to buy your wedding dress.
Well, Mom had always made all my clothes. The only clothes that I remember getting brand new was a white blouse that I wore to a competition concert at KU in Lawrence. We got to stay overnight in the dorms. Had to wear a black skirt, but I got her to buy me a new white blouse. I went in choir, and it was real exciting. That's the only thing that I remember getting bought before my wedding dress. And I bought it. Aunt Grace went with me to Kansas City, and we found a dress, and it cost $50. And we got it, but I was really scared to death that my father would get so upset about spending so much money for the dress. I don't remember him ever doing that, but I was very afraid that he would.
Hey now! It still doesn't make any sense.
Said hey.
So, anybody want to be the first?
No.
Go
I
for
thought
it.
you had a list.
Brian, you're doing fine.
So, tell me about how you taught Audrey how to crack an egg.
Well, you mean break an egg?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, she loves to cook. And so, one day we was in there and cooking and she put the egg, and she says, I want to break an egg too. So we got her an egg, and she was 2 years old. She put it down on a flat surface and proceeded to break her egg. And she broke the egg with one hand, and then the egg fell perfectly into the bowl and didn't know where the rest of the egg was. And then she she found out, so I just let it go because we was busy. And I said, Audrey, you broke an egg with one hand. It didn't make a mess. And she said, yeah, I'm good, Grandma. Then another time we was doing it, and she had to do eggs. And she was fixing eggs. I was. So I went and
They're happy upstairs. That's what she says.
that time, she cracked an egg on the side of the bowl. And when she broke it open, she saw that there was she broke it on the edge of the bowl, and eggshells went in it. Then she broke it on the surface, and I told her to break it. That's the wrong way of breaking the egg. She has to break it on the surface, a flat surface. She said, no, that's not right, Grandma. That's not right. So she broke it on the surface and did it the correct way. And she said, well, that's the wrong way. Mommy and Daddy always break the eggs on the edge of the bowl. and not on the side, you know. And, so she, a couple of weeks later, she was with Tim Bowling and Sheena, and they were cooking something. And, so she was fixing the eggs, and Grandpa started breaking on the edge of the bowl. She said, "Grandpa, that's not right. You have to be careful. You do it the other way, that's the wrong way." So she remembered, you know, and just a week and a half or 2 weeks, finally, that I was so surprised that in one lesson like that, I was just so surprised that she remembered and corrected her grandpa.
So tell me about Grandma's sugar cookies and her secret ingredient.
Oh. Well, May Nichols at Mount Ida Church. So Mount Ida, Kansas. There was always dinners. So, well, I was going on there. And I could never make the cookies taste as good as Grandma's cookies. So, I don't know who had the idea, but somebody came up with the idea that she was leaving a secret ingredient out. Like Grandma would keep a secret and not tell somebody something. And so we said, well, I said I think the only difference is that May Nichols makes her sugar cookies just real tiny. They're just little tiny, and it's just like really soft and melts in your mouth, as Deb would say. And I said, well, no, I think it's probably the whiskey that she puts in it. And she said, really? Would never have had whiskey, alcohol, beer, anything like that in her house, let alone in her cooking. And she would always go, oh, oh, every time the subject came up. She had this little sound that she said. And so it was just, we tortured her with that for years, and we told the preacher about it, and the preacher even spoke about it at her funeral. It's just, what was the other secret ingredient thing that we was talking about today?
I don't remember. Tell me about how Grandpa and Wayne played with their ice cream.
Oh, Daddy loved Dairy Queen ice cream. He loved his he would he just loved Dairy Queen ice cream, and when you went to the Dairy Queen he would get a quart and just eat a quart of Dairy Queen ice cream.
In one sitting?
Yeah. And
Tell me not to do that.
and then
You're
he
supposed to
would,
piece that out.
well, he had to eat it fast because
No.
it would melt, you know.
That's one way to do it. Or get less. And then it won't melt.
More's better.
Sounds good. That's true. Oh, man.
So when he was at home, you could only get a hard serve ice cream, half-gallon containers, and he would take the chocolate, quick instant chocolate mix that you would mix into milk to have chocolate milk. We probably had syrup then too, but we always had, he had the, that kind, the instant powdered chocolate. So he would take and he'd put a little bit of milk in his bowl. You have to get the size of the bowl right.
It was an old one of Grandma's old cottage cheese
Containers.
containers.
You're right. Cottage cheese containers, I'd forgotten that. And then he saved it and they'd wash the container and he would mix the chocolate and milk. He would get it the container and he'd put it all in there and it just mix and mix and mix and mix and mix and mix and mix. I said, Daddy, why do you always play with your ice cream? Why do you just eat it? And he said, but it's better this way. And then he'd go around the other way, you know, and it'd go like this way. And so Wayne started doing it. And then then Brian started doing it. And the fun thing for me was always that Brian would, he would take his he just loved it. And so when Brian was doing it, he had two little heads set down here, Doug and Kevin. And they would do motions with their hands. And then they would, you know, want to bite. Well, he'd always give in and give you guys a few bites. Few is the word.
What was the mix? What was the chocolate mix?
It was like a powdered mix.
There's just the quick mix, just the chocolate. It was a quick mix at the time. I forgot what what the brand was
Why
at the
not
time.
just chocolate milk or chocolate ice cream?
But I have no idea.
Then you don't do the whole mixing process and you not catch that whole story.
Well, a lot of times, no.
It makes no sense.
You know, a lot of times when I did it, we didn't have chocolate ice cream at the time. So I'd get vanilla and do this to get chocolate ice cream.
Or just get a blender
That totally makes sense.
and then you have the shake that you're creating.
But it was, to me, I always just said, why do you play with your ice cream like that? It just irritated me to no end.
So tell me about your secret trip to the Rocky Roost.
I mean, the other ones look a little better. That one looks like utility.
Well, when I was a cheerleader,
I like
I was in freshman in high school, I was allowed to drive to school, to drive to school, catch a bus to go to the game, to be a cheerleader. And and then football at night, you know. So there you went. I went. So I was over there and I would, my best friend lived across the street until high school. They had to move to Barnett. Her name was Pearl Glover. They would,
the other ones look better. That's just weird. It is weird.
so,
This one's
she didn't have any way of going to, she would come home with me from school, but she would not have any way to get back home. So she had to call somebody from the roost. And when she got back, or when we got back from the game, she had to call the school for a ride. So I was always allowed to drive the car to the Rocky Roost if I promised with my heart that I would never, ever that I would not go out to the Rocky Roost. Well, I did. I took Pearl out to the roost to get them back. But I didn't, but I never did go inside the Rocky Roost. That would be just way, I would say, jump out fast, and then I would speed off around the corner. So Daddy, I don't think Daddy ever found out, but if I had just told him that I was taking him to the roost, he wouldn't have cared.